Alright, we should be making a video, DraftScience and such, comment video, and so get to it, I suppose. I get that you don't subscribe to the sinkhole model. Just wondering if you were contesting the deviation from inverse square proportionality of field geometry. I don't think there's any deviation, so you'd have to explain what the deviation is. The inverse square law is a consequence of spherical bodies, perfect spheres. Now, if it's not a perfect sphere, it's not going to obey the inverse square law perfectly. But that can be the only out of bounds. And the theory of bent space assumes perfect spheres. Let's see, what they call the missing slice of pie. So, well, see, you have to link to something or do something. I mean, I've never heard of this missing slice of pie crap, so I don't know what you're talking about. I have found it quite complicated, and was just wondering if that's what you were referring to by bent space. No, I was just referring to their theory that the cause of gravity is bent space, that somehow the space is making the things move. It's not a force, it's not a mechanism, it's some silly thing like the stuff just moves. It's a vacuous, empty explanation. Things don't just move. Curving energy gradients. Well, if they said curving energy gradients, then that would be saying something. They don't even say that. What's the energy then? Then gravity's a force, okay? Then it's something I can understand. If it's energy, then it has to be a force of some kind. Something they're using the word energy to describe. There is no energy in their theory. That's the whole fucking point. That's my whole criticism of it. It's vacuous nonsense. It just says they move, period. The rubber mat model does particularly address that aspect of field geometry, ironically. Well, it can't, because the rubber mat doesn't, first off, unless you engineer it perfectly, it doesn't duplicate the inverse square law. Just bending any old fabric doesn't make the inverse square proportion. It's a specific arc, and you have to specifically force it on a substance. And again, that's only a two-dimensional model, and you're using gravity to explain gravity. It really is kind of a bullshit frickin'... You can't use the force you're trying to describe in your model. Anyway, gosh, stupid comments. There are three fields, 147, 258, and 390. What the hell could that be to anybody? Oh, lunatics. Too many lunatics on Earth, too. You know, they shoot horses, don't they? I mean, it's time to shoot some people. Gary, if there's no field, how do you explain that my standard electrical test equipment can measure the current or voltage that surrounds a conductor? You don't understand the difference between a force and a field. So I'm saying there's no fields, there's just forces. And of course there are forces around everything all the time. All the microwaves, all the stuff moving in my room right now, all the photons, all this stuff is forces. And it's moving around me all the time. It's hitting me all the time. Gravity's another force. So, non sequitur, I guess I would claim. I mean, clearly I'm not saying there's no voltages and there's no magnetism. I'm saying there are. They're forces. They're not fields. They don't exist unless something is in them actively doing something. They're not just a field of something automatically. No, the field has to be created by making little soldiers. When there's soldiers, then there's a field of soldiers. When there's no soldiers, there's no field. And it's not like air in a tube. It is. You can say it isn't, but frankly, voltage moving through a wire is like air or water through a hose. It is like it. Yes, electrons have a drift velocity measured in millimeters per second. Yes, which means that obviously it has nothing to do with electricity, because obviously electricity moves a lot faster than that. I agree with your statement. The voltage always ends up at 0 volts. Well, it always ends up at ground, whatever you establish as the ground. So the 0 is never the same number. I mean, you go to two locations on Earth, and the grounds are probably subtly different. Certainly, top of the mountain kind of argument you could make, that it probably has a little higher potential, so your ground state is a little higher. Electrical fields and magnetic fields are two separate entities. No, they're not. It's exactly the same mechanism. And I've explained it so many times, but I'll draw you a picture real quick. Gary's garagari is making up shit as he goes along. Right, that's why there's 7 years of videos, and that's exactly what I did. I made up shit as I went along, and the shit fits. And you haven't been able to make a counter argument. Again, I have the video sitting there in the subject playlist. Please point out where you can demonstrate one statement I made in any of those videos that can't be true. But you can't do it. You're so lame with the video just to make himself sound right. Well, if I sound right, then I'm probably doing the right thing, jackass. Alright, so let's draw a little real quick. So my argument is, and just for the sake of argument, well, maybe I can do it in both colors, what the hell, I'm a semi-talented person. The idea is that there's two forces in the universe, two things moving the speed of light, okay? And one of them happens to be positive and one of them happens to be negative. And they just move the speed of light. They're all exactly identical in terms of their momentum, so they're same speed, okay? And what's this? Is there a universal signal for same? So they got the same speed, and they got the same velocity and the same mass. So they have the same momentum. So all of them have the same momentum. They come from everywhere in the universe, like the cosmic background radiation. They're always moving, and theoretically there's the same amount going this way as 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 that way. And that's the universe starts with. And then the universe has matter bits in it. Electrons, protons. Neutrons are just a composite particle. They're the charges, and they're exactly colored proportional to the two kinds of force. So the electron, we could say, is the, traditionally I've been using red for proton, but let's keep with that one. So this would be the electron, and this would be the proton. So they don't emit anything on their own, not at all. But what happens is this force hits them, and the red bits always reflect. So the red bits automatically leave the same way they came in, and the blue bits shoot out perpendicular to the way they came in. So if it's just sitting all by itself, it doesn't mean anything. It'll shoot out as much blue bits as it will red bits, and it'll be all mixed, and won't mean anything. But if they're in relationship to each other, then they create a circumstance where they are either repulsive, because if it's a red guy next to a red guy, all the red bits in between are going to go back and forth perpetually, in fact. Okay, they could just keep doing that for millions of years, just bouncing back and forth between two electrons. But if an electron meets a proton, then all these little blue bits that come off the proton will pop out of the electron, and all the red bits will pop out of the proton, and so you won't have any pressure in here, so you have a low pressure, because everything gets out. Doesn't mean there's no force there, it just means it's very low force, so low amount of force. Okay, oops. Alright, and those are the two relationships you have in physics. The repulsive force and the attractive force. Low pressure, high pressure. Perpetual reflections, no reflections. And that explains attraction and repulsion. So anytime two things are attracting and repelling, it doesn't matter whether it's charge or magnetism, that's the stuff that's doing it. It's photons, essentially. Now, photons, in the sense of electromagnetic radiation, is specific to electrons. So we know that stuff is just blue force, if we say electrons are blue, right? Alright, so we know that's just blue force, and we know it just comes at a specific period. So there's a specific period of time between the little arrows, okay? Specific amount of time between them. We call that a frequency, and that's the electromagnetic spectrum. It's a real thing. And magnetism would just be, you don't need the frequency. All you need is all blue force, or a lot of blue force, and that'll be the north side of the magnet, and a lot of red force. Oh, shit. Alright, this is what I drew for frequency. I really should have known I had to scroll the diagram. Alright, so if it's all blue, then it's going to be the north end of the magnet, and if it has a lot of red in it, you know, because of the circumstance, then we call that the south end. So you explain magnetism, you explain electricity, you explain voltage, you explain why voltage is, as I pointed out before, is when atoms, okay, go from being like this with their electron to going like this with their electron. Okay, so they're different. Well, that's not very helpful. I hit the mouse. Hey, it went backwards. It usually doesn't do that. Yeah, sorry, my voice is a little challenged just from the problem I've had with my teeth. But anyway, and what's going to happen is when these two atoms are in a composite, that is, when they're forced to be close to each other, what's going to happen is these pressure, the extra pressure that this electron is under, you know, they're further apart because they got more little bits bouncing back and forth between them. I should have stayed with the blue. But the reason why it got bigger is more force got injected into it. So the electrons are being pushed apart. Okay, more force means they're pushed apart. And this one has less force between its electrons. And when the two are in proximity to each other, what's going to happen is the extra force in this electron is going to share its pressure with the other atom, and the two of them are going to be in the same pressure. And if there's another low pressure atom here, then it's going to share that pressure. And that one went low, that means this one's going to share its pressure. So it's just a sharing process, and that's what voltage is. That's how it moves. That's how a current moves, is going from pressurizing an atom, and the pressure is shared down the line. And as that happens, you're changing the dipole. Okay, these are dipolar atoms. You're changing their polarization in the sense of how much stuff they reflect. So when the field hits them, and they're in one configuration, they're going to reflect more electron energy. And when they're in the other configuration, they'll reflect more proton energy. So depending on where the electron is in proximity to the proton, they'll reflect more energy. So just as this pen can move in front of this pen and block it completely, right? Block it completely. And especially can do it from a distance. See, the closer I make it, it's really easy to block. So in a sense, if this pen is like that, this means only blue is going to get reflected. If it's like this, then some red's going to get reflected. See, that's how it works. So there's no fields. There's only stuff moving the speed of light, the force. And whether it's in the form of gravity, or whether it's in the form of magnetism, whether it's in the form of electric current, the force between electrons, the little bits, photons essentially, trapped between the electrons, or it's in the form of photons flying through empty space. It's a force. There's no field. Okay. Right. Tesla made HAARP. He really didn't. But I mean, yes, his theory was he wanted to transmit electricity through the ground to another location, which was stupid because the ground is huge. The earth is huge. It dampens anything you put into it. You can't, it's like if the earth was a sponge and you drop one drop of water, you can't get your drop of water out of the other side of the sponge, okay? You know it's going to dissipate through the whole sponge and you won't have a drop of water over there. So the whole idea was stupid. I mean, Tesla had some stupid ideas, and that was one of them. That is a death ray. The death ray wasn't his through the ground theory in the first place. So, and there was no death ray, and it's just baby talk. And nobody came close to Tesla. Well, you're saying that nobody could be as crazy, fine. But Tesla was not a great scientist. He was a bit of an idiot, and he was kind of obnoxious. And he was pretentious and egotistical. I'd also say that gravity is fake from my research. Well, I think you're pretty much... I think I can just block you, because that's just too stupid. It just can't make any sense. It's like saying water is fake. It's just way too stupid for anybody to say, oh, I get what you're saying. You're trying to say something rational. No, you're not trying at all. Okay. Another guy who's not trying. All right, James begin. Jesus Christ, Gary, no gases in the atmosphere act like a glass on a greenhouse. Says you. They're transparent. So is it your idea that if I took a piece of glass and I broke it into a bunch of individual little pieces, that technically it wouldn't be doing exactly the same thing? I mean, obviously it would have to take up more space, and there'd be spaces there was no glass, so it wouldn't be working in those spaces, and they would be letting air out. So let's just say if the air can't get out where the empty spaces are, wouldn't the piece of glass be doing exactly the same thing? See, you have some kind of theory that transparent molecules aren't transparent when they're free in the universe. I'm saying exactly the opposite. I'm saying they are exactly the same thing. They're still transparent. Okay, they still will transmit energy the same way they did when they weren't single atoms. All right, no glass in the atmosphere. Okay, the greenhouse is just a broad analogy. It's not a broad analogy. It's explicitly stated. A greenhouse gas, it's basically saying it creates, it does exactly what a piece of glass does. That's exactly what it's being used for. That's exactly how I understand what the scientists are saying. That's exactly what I'm saying for certain. So that's just bullshit. I mean, you want to put words in our mouth. Well, frankly, I'm not going to accept that. Fuck you. I'm not as stupid as you want me to be. Too bad, fucker. It's just marketing. What a pile of crap. It's an actual phenomenon. It's what transparent things can do, is transmit energy. And when they do transmit it, it might mean that if the energy comes in the wrong form, they don't transmit it, just like a piece of glass. Some energy doesn't go through it very well. Radio waves, lots of things have more trouble than other things. They get through better. Things are selectively transparent. Polarized film even. You're just being an asshole. Let's see. It is an untested and untestable supposition. Of course it's not. And like I said, there's a ton of tests. I'm really not going to go do this for you. Okay, I'm not going to give you a personal education about the 5,000 experiments out there that produce every indication that carbon dioxide transmits energy selectively. You should never pretend like you understand when you don't. Well, that's just more, you just keep doing the same shit over and over again. There's nothing wrong with my understanding. There's something wrong with your ethics, that you'll sit there and try to force people to be saying what they're not saying. Liar. I know everybody else does it, but everybody else is not putting forth a revolutionary theory. Again, this has nothing to do with my theory. Greenhouse gas was around long before I showed up, and I'm certainly not saying that's one part of conventional physics I don't think they've gotten wrong, idiot. Never pretend like you understand what you don't. Yeah, just fuck you. You're really going to be done here now. I mean, you just keep saying the same shit. I'm not pretending anything. I'm making arguments, jackass, if you haven't fucking noticed. Alright, and they're really good arguments. And you're making these lame bullshit, you know, implying that I don't know the difference between, you know, some sort of political propaganda and science. Yeah, I do. I know the difference between experiments. I know the difference between, again, you telling me that I have to believe carbon dioxide molecules aren't transparent molecules that transmit energy differentially, depending on its frequency, when I know they do. LOL. So you think the huge heat capacity of H2O is irrelevant? No, it's only relevant on the surface of the Earth. It's relevant because it's inside the greenhouse. It's one of the things that's absorbing energy and releasing it as infrared, idiot. Oh, fuck. I mean, it's absorbing the ultraviolet and it's releasing it as heat. So yeah, you need the water because it's a good absorber of heat. Surreal. You are completely clueless. No, you're a completely deceptive. It's not about layers. Again, I told you what a layer constitutes. It just doesn't matter. So let me draw it for you. Let me draw you a picture because you're too fucking stupid to get it on your own. So this could be called a layer. And as I tried to point out to you, I could just break it into pieces that are up against each other And the layer will still work exactly the same. It won't matter if I break all the pieces of glass, as long as I have all the pieces of glass right next to each other, same effect. Now, if I move the pieces of glass here and here and here and here and here and here and here, move them all to different locations, it doesn't really matter, because in a sense, they're all going to collect light. They're all going to do the same exact reflecting. The exact same thing is going to happen, so it makes no difference how thick this layer is. Because all that really matters is the photon is captured, okay, it transmits through, and the ones that come back up from this way, the infrared ones, all right, are reflecting more. So they reflect more, just more by a percentage, than the ultraviolet reflected coming in. And so there's a disproportion. And that disproportion means that eventually this side gets hotter than this side, or than this side. And that's what's just going to happen because of those molecules. Those molecules will force there to be a differential on the two sides. Lots of substances do that. You can make lots of synthetics that do that. It's just a fact of life, shithead. Alright, let's see. Not on layers. That's just you filling in details that the carbon phonies won't provide. It's frankly not a very complex detail. I mean, the fact that you can make a layer out of things in different locations is hardly a brain surgery piece of innovating science. I would assume that a regular physicist doesn't think he needs to explain all this to people. Where does the empirical evidence support your imagined scenario? Well, I'm sure there's plenty of experiments out there. Go look under CO2 proof of greenhouse. You are fucking clueless. You just keep saying the same bullshit rhetoric. Why should I tolerate that? Fuck you. That's all I can say. Fuck you. Fuck off. Again, none of this is on the subject of my physics and what I want to talk about. This troll just shows up here to advertise his nonsense, his truther theory. And that's all he is. He's just a spammer. No, dumbass, I don't ignore the subject. Frankly, you're denying its existence in any other form but a piece of glass on a house. You're saying that's the only place greenhousing happens. No, it happens in lots of places. You create a scenario based on pure imagination. No, on pure logic. I know the subject, retard. Well, obviously you don't know the subject because you don't know the difference between what an atom can hold as energy, what a collection of atoms have as energy between them, that is motion, and what they transmit, that is what they do to energy that comes into their little collective, and whether they reflect it or they pass it. You don't seem to understand the word pass. You think it's the only two things can happen, absorption and reflection. No, there's transmission. So you say you know the subject, you don't know shit, because you don't know the word transmission. You don't. Fuck you. It's not all about what is radiated. Oh, yes, it is. That's exactly what it's all about, is what's radiated and what side it ends up radiated on. It's about what is conserved. It has nothing to do. There's no argument either position that doesn't violate conservation laws, idiot. There's no conservation law that says you can't have this thermodynamic inequity. Of course you can. Dumbass. Yeah, I ignore your retarded argument. Well, then I'll ignore yours, and I'll do it more aggressively now. Fuck off. I mean, I've given you more latitude than I gave anybody else here, and you just keep you just keep ignoring the courtesies I've extended you, you stupid troll. All right, J.J. Thomson, the man who discovered the electron, denied for a very long time that it exists. Well, lots of people say lots of things, so you can quote mine anybody, and you can make them say this, or you can make them say that. I mean, obviously you can't make them say things too extreme, but I'm sure there's lots of Hitler quotes that sound quite profound and beautiful. Okay, but you know, it doesn't mean anything. The very man discoverer of it. And again, how's it change the experiment? Doesn't change the experiment any, doesn't change what we learn from experiments. Now, not every experiment says we know what an electron is, every electron's the same, electrons don't have spin, electrons are not every one says that. So they've given electrons lots of properties currently that I think they don't have, that there's no experiment that demonstrates they actually have any of these properties, because they've misinterpreted what experiments are saying, like the Stern-Gerlach effect. They've got that all wrong. Daniel Newman. There is such a thing. There is such an experiment. Paramecia. Oh, I wish people just keep... I don't know what to say. I mean, it does come up just because people are crazy. Anyway. Sucked into a small capillary tube, eventually took less and less time to escape from it. Yes, that's the very experiment I'm pointing out to you is an evolution experiment, because the parameciums breed so quickly that by doing the experiment, what they're basically saying is, I'm a paramecium. I have 10 kids. 5 of my kids turn left a lot, and 5 of my kids turn right a lot. The only ones they're going to allow to breed again are the ones that turned left. You can sort of figure out that pretty soon all the parameciums turn left a lot. Not complicated. They evolve fast, really, really fast. And so that's all the experiment is. It's an evolution experiment. It's just showing how selective selection, creates outcomes. It has nothing to do with an individual paramecium experiencing pain, reward, and punishment, and learning that there's a right way to go and a wrong way to go. Not a single one of the parent parameciums who first encountered the choice have any part in the experiment. So you're just, this is the danger. This is like the Pharaoh cell and all these little bullshit things that people can make up these stories about what happened. And so here's another plain experiment, not complicated, and they pervert it into this garbage by their assumptions and by their presumptions. They want to believe. Then they just only want to pay attention to the obvious, that the reason why it takes the parameciums so long to learn is because they have to evolve to do it. Shit. They're not learning anything. They're just going from having brown eyes to having blue eyes. You're just changing a feature of their physique. All right, your quote. I contend that the particle theory of reality was correct, and that the science of physics needs to return to the post-Newton, pre-Einstein knowledge base. Oh yeah, that was a good quote. And re-examine particle-based models of the universe's function. Yeah, it's very good, off the website. It is absolutely right on the money. Yes, thank you. I think it's right on there too. The issue that was caused post-Einstein has resulted in a stagnation on applied physics and a loss of funding to proper scientific experimentation in the field of physics. Well, any kind of real physics. Yeah, real physics is dead, and the only thing getting funded is the useless crap. Accelerator crap, frickin' gravity wave crap. You're never going to make a cake out of gravity waves. You're not going to make a single useful thing ever out of a gravity wave. But that's where all the money's going, is to this nonsense crap that I first say isn't real, and even if it was real, who cares? Oh, fuck. Useless crap. And yes, and no money has been spent on answering simple question. Why do the photons bend when they go through those slits? Why don't we try to answer that question rationally? Yeah, that would be cool. Let's have a rational explanation. Why do planets fall towards the sun? Yeah, let's have a rational explanation, not some bullshit, bent bullshit, fucking bullshit. But anyway, look, Einstein's a nice, likable guy. Well, in some respect, I mean, he's a child-abandoning douchebag, but, humble enough. But, yeah, we should take him seriously. He basically said, I probably should have been a plumber. He has no passion for this, and clearly. And, yeah, his answers were, okay, you can make it work. But it's fake. It's vacuous. It's an invisible man. It's a three-bear story. All of this shit is just three-bear crap. Talking about stuff we can't test and you know, making statements about it as if it's the truth, giving photons magical powers. You know, again, somebody please explain to me why logically we should understand that photons are twice as affected by gravity. Why? Why should it be that way? There's no rational reason why a photon would be twice as heavy. You know, I mean, twice as. Yeah, you can't say heavy because you know you really understand gravity. It's not about mass. But like its velocity is as if it was going half as fast as it really is, and nothing else gets the same exemption. I can move an electron. I can't. It doesn't get the exemption. It doesn't get to be twice as gravitationally affected. It's just bullshit physics. Weak physics. Just weak. It's not a good story. It's not a very realistic story. And I frankly, as a rational person, find it totally unsatisfying as an explanation. It just sounds like magic, invisible, spooky action all over the place. I mean, it's just so ironic. Einstein critiqued spooky action, and that's all his bent space bullshit is spooky action. So anyway. Oh, I guess I should probably go to the spammers. I thought there was a comment by some crank about something. Let's see. Q&A physics. No, it's old stuff. 3 weeks ago. No, it's old stuff. Yeah, it's an old one. Somebody commented, you know, made some crack that I didn't hit the extra see more. I just wanted to point out that I did actually hit it. See, it's still spinning. It's been spinning for 3 days. It's still spinning. I mean, I did click on the see more replies. It just didn't work. So let's redo it and see if I can get it to work. I really hate the way they broke the comments section. It used to be so, I mean, it just be, comments were under the video. You didn't have to do all this fucking bullshit. This crap all over the place. Fucking, the internet just sucks. Alright, 3 replies. I don't know where it was. It's not in here. It must be under the Puro comment. Okay, Puro comments. It says 7 replies. And then it says see more. I mean, that's just sort of irritating, right? Why don't you just show them all if they're here? So now they're showing up. I don't know why they're showing up now. Alright, let's see. Everybody would be doing it. Given the right slit distance and slit width. Alright, so that's where he has the inaccurate information. Experiments to detect which slit the photon went through have been done, and have been done in many different variations. So again, a guy can't post the link. You know, why can't you post the link? So I don't see any more replies here anywhere. So what the hell is this comment? Thank you for impartially consideration, and I will try to do my best to address your questions. Keep in mind it's all too emotionally draining. Also, please keep in mind YouTube keeps censoring comments that have links in them. It is extremely annoying and further wears me down significantly. You must be really thin-skinned. Could you please address this contention that if true, everyone would be doing that? Why doesn't everyone do that if true? I think it might be because most people don't have DraftScience proposal in mind, which makes it a little unnecessary to go through such lengths. Well, again, I'm just pointing out people would have fun with it, all right? If they could make a 2-slit pattern into a single slit pattern by just sticking a piece of cardboard in the way, they'd love it. Most people, let's see, I happen to once voice that this is really good reasoning, and then another user called me an idiot for thinking that, so I decided to come up with my proposal and really test if the slit pattern and single slit pattern equal double slit pattern proposal is really true. Usually people just place a vertical wire in an opening to make a double slit. And see, again, it's not a double slit pattern. So again, that's a single slit pattern. So if you put the single needle in front of the light source, it's not really doing a double slit pattern. There won't be the two patterns. There'll just be the single slit pattern, the two surface pattern. I keep pointing that out to you. A real double slit pattern has to have the envelope. And that indeed makes it hard to separate the two slits. But if you are willing to put a lot of effort, you can make the slits be apart by 1 or 2 millimeters. Now, I doubt the credibility of that statement. And you won't be creating a double slit pattern. You'll be creating two single slit patterns. And why does he think everyone in fact do that? I'm not sure. Well, I think I've explained it. Also, could you address the second part of the comment about it, debunking wave interference as a cause of the pattern? Does he have a point that if the second slit is blockable, that rules out the interference explanation? I don't understand what he meant there. Well, that's not much. However, I have a guess as to what he might be thinking. I remember 2 years ago or so, he was arguing that water waves spread out instantly when they come out of the slits. I don't know what that could even mean. What I said was water waves, if you put the same waves into the two things, two slit pattern, single slit pattern, the single slit creates nice round waves, no interference. Now if you put a bunch of agitated water through a single slit, then you get agitation out. That's what I said, idiot. And if the beams are focused when they come out from slits, they would counteract wave behavior. That doesn't make any sense to me, so I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't agree with that, if that's what he's saying, because light moves at the speed of light, so who cares? This is extremely fast, and waves moving at such extreme speeds wouldn't have time to spread out. Now, does that make any sense to anybody? He's basically arguing that water waves, the wave in the front, the one that goes straight forward, is going a whole lot faster than the ones over here. No, it's not a whole lot faster. It's just a little bit faster. A little bit. And that's all it would be with light. To make a round wave, the only way you can make the round wave, retard, is you have to have some mechanism to slow it down. That's what makes it round, is it got slowed down. The drag is being created by the surfaces in water. You understand that? And if it wasn't for the surface drag, you'd never have round waves in the water experiment. They wouldn't be round. They'd come out nice and flat. The only reason why they're round is because of the drag. Anyway, this is extremely fast. I wouldn't have time to spread out. That's why water waves spread out so much and light doesn't. Well, that doesn't even make any sense. I mean, clearly the spreading of the light is incredible. As you make the slit smaller and smaller with light, it's moving in 90-degree angles. So this is the conversation that I was supposed to address. Well, yeah, frankly, it wasn't much to it. But maybe there's some other comment somewhere. I don't know. I mean, all I can do is hit the button and say, give me more stuff, and if it gives it to me, it gives it to me. So my reply apparently just got, oh, there it is. All right. Let me read more there and see if there's, there really can't be responses to that specific comment. No, there isn't. Alright, so anyway, comment threading is garbage too. So, but anyway, so that's enough. I think we're done. I believe so. Let's see if there's any new exciting videos here. I did do a philosophy video responding to Hothla Day on the Inmendum channel. But, no, there's no real point. His start here videos are non-starters. You can't start where he wants to start. So this guy is a bit of a nut here. Probably should do a dissident video on him someday. Apparently has a lot of money. So he does have a lot of nice equipment. But it's all wacky crap. Alright, so that's enough. So until the next time and such, so forth and whatnot. I don't think there's anything else.